I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
Thanks everyone for listening to this episode. I want to give a quick disclaimer before we start the show. I had Dr. Laura Cable on, who was an amazing episode. But two things to note. One was this was recorded at the end of June, which was before we started doing the Perlman Performing Arts Center episode. So just note that the timing of this was a little bit ago. And the other thing to call out is I found out that while we were recording virtually, I had COVID at the time. And so you can definitely hear that in my voice. Either way, Laura was amazing and you are going to love this episode. So thanks for listening and let's start the show.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. She was Jellylorum on the U.S. National Tour 5 of Cats. So welcome, Laura Cable, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you. Bear with me, everybody, as I'm battling through a flu type of cold. So my voice is a little shot here, but it's still a good time and a good day to talk about cats. So we're going to power through. Right. So I always like to start with the beginning. Where was your history to cats? Like, what was the first introduction for you?
Believe it or not, it was a record. There were some musicals, there were some albums that for some reason at the Cable household were on record. They were not on cassette tape. We absolutely listened to the record of Cats first before I ever saw it in the theater. And I did see it in a theater. I was lucky enough to grow up in Detroit where we had amazing First National tours coming through all the time. And I did, as a very, very young girl, have the opportunity to see it. But before I even saw it, it was on the record. And so I was sort of making up my own stories. I'm someone with a very vivid imagination. And I sort of had my own version of what Cats would be like before I ever saw people in front of me in cat costumes.
Yeah.
I had my own story. And I can still remember the texture because the record has a very different texture than a cassette tape, than an MP3 now, than anything. And I remember that it kind of added to the spookiness or the intrigue of the show to hear it on record. Like, ooh, it was something special.
Yeah.
That was my first introduction. Yeah.
It's so interesting because like there is this debate of, do you listen to a cast album before you go, or do you just go in blind? And I've always done the reverse.
Right.
Like I want to hear the whole thing together the first time, and then I'll listen to it a bunch after. And
I'm that way now too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I really am. Because even when Hamilton was sweeping the nation and everybody knew every word to it, I was just like, I'm going to be a holdout. I know this sounds silly, but I'm going to be a holdout because I want to experience the show before I hear the soundtrack. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I want to be along for the ride.
But did you even recognize, because I was assuming you're a kid at this time, that was like a musical, or is it just like one of the albums being played in your household with like some rock or whatever else was being mixed in?
Good question. For some reason, I understood. Okay. I understood that one was a musical and that our Chipmunks one was a TV show. And that I somehow put together, I understood the buckets. I didn't understand at the time that there were people that night, because considering when in the 80s that the show came out, already at that point, every day of my life, because I was born after Cats, every day of my life, I didn't realize that there were actors doing the show actively somewhere in the world. That part I didn't get. I just knew that it was on my record and that we were going to go one night to see it, but I didn't realize it was still happening every night. That part was a little meta for me at that age, but I understood it was a musical.
For sure. I asked because my mom's a piano teacher and she plays the piano. And for the longest time, I didn't recognize that song was in a musical or just a rock song or something else. It was just a classical piano piece. It was just all music to me. And it honestly wasn't even until COVID when I was home and the piano tutor started playing Memory. And I was like, now I realize why I know this song even more. And so it's cool. Like little things like that where you just kind of get the pieces of it. But so you did get to see the tour in Detroit. This would have been the third tour, I'm assuming, the first national.
That would make sense. Yeah, okay. It probably was. And I don't remember much about the experience except that I loved it. I was a very scared audience member in general, and I
Same.
don't remember being scared by cats for some reason.
Okay.
I was just like, we're good here. Like, I didn't mind that cats were jumping out in the audience, wearing their green eyes and stuff. Not at all. I was just like, we're good here. This is great. This is just like the record. Yep. I thought nothing was weird about this at all. Loved it.
About how old were you when you saw that?
Oh, I must have been 4 or 5.
Oh,
Like,
so
we're
really
talking
young.
very,
Oh,
very,
okay.
yes. And I do have a lot of long-term memories from when I was that age. First time I was on stage, I was 3, and I have vivid memories of that. So like, I have no doubt that this memory, it checks out, that I was there and I saw it.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was most likely one of my first times in a theater watching anything. I believe, and I'll have to, check with my parents on this one, but I believe I was on stage before I ever saw a musical, because 3 is very little. You can't even sit through anything at 3.
Oh,
So
definitely.
I was a munchkin in The Wizard of Oz in a high school production. Like, similar to you, my dad was a music teacher, and his high school that he taught at was doing The Wizard of Oz, and he had 2 little munchkins at home, my sister and myself. And so he's like, yeah, we'll put him on stage. And we're like, what's a musical? He's like, you'll find out. I was like, okay, thanks. Along for the ride again, just like, it's going to be fun. It's going to be all right. But yeah, it was probably one of my first times actually sitting in a theater.
That's amazing. Yeah, it is really interesting because of you at that point you've heard it enough, but you don't recognize it, and then you're going to see it. You're still too young to kind of get all the craziness that comes with that show.
100%.
But it is interesting to say you weren't scared, because like as an adult, I was terrified.
I didn't know any better.
Yeah,
I understand that.
But
Now
you
I'd be
probably have
scared,
some
of course.
familiarity with the music too.
That's fair. Maybe that helps. Yeah.
Okay, so then you go through your high school, you do all this stuff, and then when do you get cast as Jellylorum in the 5th tour?
So this would have been in January of 2010. And again, I was already in the habit of auditioning all the time. I think we don't talk about it a lot, but to be a female musical theater performer as opposed to a male one, you go on so many auditions and they equal nothing. You know what I mean? It's just a numbers game. And so I was at that point auditioning all the time. I did not think that this was going to be my big break. I wasn't particularly nervous. I was like, I have 3 auditions today. One of them is for the Cats national tour. Okay, I'll go, no big deal. But I remember the audition so vividly because obviously it changed my life. Going on that tour broadened so many things, not just in performance, but it brought some of the best people in my life to me. So anyway, that audition turned out to be super important, but it was for an emergency replacement track. And that means you don't have 1,000 women there. They're very specific in the breakdowns when it's an emergency replacement. It's like, can you leave town basically in a week? Do you fit? They were looking for a cover to cover both Jellylorum and Jenny Anydots. That particular actor was going to leave in a couple weeks, and they needed somebody right away. So there were only women there, and there were not thousands. There were probably less than 100. And I know that still sounds like a big number, but I promise you it's not.
Yeah.
Less than 100. And you're warming up because they wanted everyone to dance first. And I vividly remember talking to someone who I'd been auditioning with for years at that point. I knew that she was great too, because you can always hear each other singing before me. I remember just saying to her while we were warming up, the crazy thing about today is that someone's actually going to get a job.
Yeah.
And she was like, what do you mean? And I said, no, they need someone. This isn't just a required call. This isn't to be in someone's files. They need someone in 2 weeks. So like, look around, like someone's going to get this job. And she's like, whoa, that's a great perspective. It turns out it was me, but I wasn't, that wasn't on my radar at all. I was just looking around thinking, this one's different.
Yeah.
Someone's going to join the national tour of Cats like in 2 weeks. Huh. Again, did not think it was my turn at all. And my background being a stronger actor and a stronger singer than I am a dancer, I didn't think Cats would happen for me. I didn't know that Cats has a variety of skill levels when it comes to dance. And I couldn't have, in retrospect, I couldn't have built a more perfect track than the one that I eventually was in. The path from being an offstage vocal swing, only covering 2 Cats for basically a solid year, and then going into Jellylorum full time, it ended up being perfect. But for anyone who knows Cats and loves the characters, Jellylorum is the storyteller. Yeah. So it's just like, whoa. And yes, of course she needs to dance. And yes, I did fine with the dancing, but I didn't think that I had the capabilities. And it turns out I had exactly what that character needs. And so we started with dancing in the audition, and it wasn't the crazy stuff. They didn't want to see the Jellicle Ball because they were just like, let's not scare anybody away. Let's do this section. And I remember it's this section of the choreography that's called Ritual, and it's slow and controlled, and every movement has a meaning. And I think that's what they wanted to check in with all of us, to be like, what are their facial expressions like? Can they take direction to turn their head on the three? And musically, it's just, Jellicle cats come out tonight. Jellicle cats come one, come all. It's a very slow version of the music that we all know. And everything has a movement. And it wasn't scary because it was taught in a very kind, gentle way. And again, they wanted us to get a job. They wanted one of us.
Yeah.
When that phone call came in saying that it was me and that I needed to leave in about a week, it was just a no-brainer. Yes. I was like, yes, like this feels right let's see where this journey leads. I didn't know that I would be on tour for 2 years. I didn't know that I would do it regionally. Could not have dreamed the friends that it brought me, the travel experiences. My gosh, we spent 2 weeks in Hawaii. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't have dreamed any of that. In that moment, I was just like, yeah, this seems like the next right thing. I'll be a cat. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. It's so fascinating as someone who has a very traditional 9-to-5 job to hear you say the like audition process is like, it's just a numbers game. Like, we're just going to everyone you can. And, you know, now it's changed even more now with like a lot of them being done virtually or like a tape.
Yes.
But to hear that versus, you know, there's I heard a couple different ways. It's like, it's either that or it's I grew up, Cats was my dream. I got it. I went to every single one of those versus like, it's one of three that same day. It's crazy.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. I only auditioned once, and that is not the case for other companies that I ended up working for. I worked for the Walt Disney Company a few years after my time with Cats. I auditioned for them for 7 years. Yeah. And then other girls walked in and they were like, no, just first time. I almost didn't believe them, but I said, no, that was me with Cats because I was exactly what they needed. And I had the ability to pack my suitcase and join them for 2 years with 1 week's notice.
Yeah. That is the other part. It's like you're narrowing it down to who's ready to go, who can hop on the plane immediately.
Yes, and go to Pittsburgh on January 26th. I remember it's like, oh, I've always wanted to go to Pittsburgh in January. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's great.
I do too, actually.
Pittsburgh's great. We're not going to hate on Pittsburgh. I'm from the Midwest, and we're going to, I do like asking what parts of the country you enjoyed or didn't enjoy, but Pittsburgh wouldn't be one, I would assume. It's a beautiful part of the country.
It actually is. And coming from Detroit, there is a mindset that is so similar.
Yeah,
there's that working class, there's no ego in either of those cities. So I was like, I felt right at home in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
It's great.
Okay. So let's talk about the tour. You mentioned a couple of things that I heard, which is you got to go all over. You went to Hawaii. You did 2 years and you started emergency cover, and then you were doing Jellylorum and Jenny Any Dots, but then you took on the full-time role for Jellylorum after.
Correct.
I want to hear a little bit about, as an emergency cover, when you're jumping in, partway through, how do they prep you for that? Because there's obviously you got to go pack and be in Pittsburgh in 2 weeks or whatever, less than that. You've got to learn the dance so that way you don't kick somebody in the face.
100%.
But also this story has a lot of depth to it. So do they go into, I always love, how much story do they tell you when you're in that moment versus when you are full-time Jelly?
That's such a good question. And it was such a unique way to be introduced to the show. I did everything backwards.
Yeah.
I did everything wrong because you're supposed to rehearse a show with the director in the room, the person who created the show. They're supposed to tell you the vision. I got none of that. But I did get it my second year. So I had the opportunity to go into rehearsals a year later after I had been performing this show hundreds of times. You're like, wait, that's what that meant? So the answer is very little. And what I picked up from the other performers on the tour very slowly. So it was always in retrospect. And it was always like, oh, well, I should have added that into my performance. I should have. And then after a while, you stop living with that regret. And you just say, oh, well, when I go in next week, I'm going to add that in there. Thank you. I didn't know those two characters knew each other. Thank you. I just learned to let go. You just have to let it go. I am a big time perfectionist. I also had to let that go. Being a swing, you have to be so pleased with a B+ performance, even though you wanted an A+. You know what I mean? I learned that lesson on that tour of Whoa, that's a 2 hour and 40-minute musical. I made 3 mistakes in 2 hours and 40. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's astounding. And next time I'm going to make 2 mistakes. You know what I mean? Like, whoa. So yes, my experience as an emergency replacement is that you learn the whole show from the dance captain. And in my case, our dance captain was fantastic, had been with the company a very, very long time. However, he had been with the company so long that he was speaking cat's lingo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I learned the whole show in Pittsburgh, in a dance studio that was a part of the theater. And then while the show was happening, I would run the show behind the cats on stage. The theater itself was very deep. So they would tape out a little area for me that was the size of the stage, basically. And I got to do cats by myself every night, just behind the playing company, which is cool. Yeah. But again, I'm all alone. I'm not primarily a dancer, and I'm learning the show from someone who has done, hundreds and hundreds of productions of it. So I remember, taking notes and asking, like, is it okay to write this down? Can I go get my piece of paper? And he's like, yeah, whatever you need to do for your process. Now it's a whole different ballgame. Now we're walking around with devices that record things all the time. 2010, not so. You know what I mean? That just wasn't a thing. You weren't walking around with an iPhone that could record the whole show. I had nothing. I just had my personal notes. And my personal notes looked like gibberish because he was speaking cat's lingo. So he would say, okay, now during the Jellicle swirl, I'm going to need you to make sure that you look out for Skimble on your right. And then you'll, and I'm like, Skimble. I just write down the word Skimble. I don't know if that's short for Skimble Shanks. Never heard of the word Skimble. You know what I mean? I'm just like, Skimble. Okay. And then he's like, yeah, and Tumble Brutus will be on your left, but he's going to pass you midway. And I remember stopping him one time being like, I don't mean to interrupt, but what color are they? He's like, excuse me. I was like, I don't know anything. Like what? So who are these people? What color are they? He's like, okay. So Skimble Shanks is orange. I was like, I thought I'm orange. He's like, no, you're going to be yellowish orange. I was like, so he's orange. Okay. And just like, whoa, you don't realize. And I was like, and what is the Jellicle swirl? He's like, that's the section that comes after this, before this. I was like, great. Got it. But if I were a true replacement, if I were going into the role of Jellylorum full time, I would have had a proper put-in rehearsal because that's contractually what you get. When you're a swing, you absolutely do not get that. You just get put on stage for the first time having no rehearsal. Can you even imagine? Can you imagine what happens when you get that call? Like, you're on tonight. And I hadn't even been with the company long enough. It was 5 days, I think, 5 or 6 days. I didn't know anyone's real name, let alone their cat name.
Yeah. Wow.
So was I nervous? Yes. Did the nerves subside throughout the show? No. I've been a swing many times since that experience. And I always tell other swings that your first time on stage is not going to be fun. You're going to be so in your head, and it's all about technically hitting the spot so you don't hurt somebody. But the second time you feel like on top of the world. You're just like, I am a superhero. Now this is fun. I've done this once. I didn't die. But you don't know that you're not going to die the first time that you do it. So everything is new and everything is scary. And I did make the fact that I can even remember this all these years does prove the perfectionist thing. That's something I'm still working on.
There. Yep.
I did make 2 mistakes, and one of them, they were both funny in retrospect. Because when you are in cats, you don't have all these opportunities to go off stage and talk to people and apologize. Say, oh, I was in your spot. Sorry about that. Thanks for coming. You don't get to really talk about it till intermission. So you have a solid hour and 15 before you can make your apologies or be like, by the way, my name's Laura. It's nice to meet you. Thank you for helping me. I had no idea who I was at this point. But my first, not even a mistake, was just I had never rehearsed with the actual props. And at some point when Skimble's actually doing his, see, now I sound like an expert. Skimble Shanks is his name. When Skimble Shanks is doing his song about being a railway cat, we create a train on stage. And I was told, you're going to grab this giant wheel and you're going to
spin it,
turn it around. And I never had the opportunity to actually lift the thing. My arms are very, very skinny. And I just assumed it would be, 2 pounds or less.
Heavy.
No.
Yeah.
It's unbelievably heavy. And so I'm there and I'm next to good old Deuteronomy, who I've never even introduced myself to. And he sees that I, like, physically with all of my body weight can't even lift this thing. And he just sort of turned to me and very slowly, he's like hidden inside of the train. He very slowly helped me. You know, he like put both of his hands there and he like showed me how to kind of do what I needed to do. And we're hidden inside and we're not singing. Our mics are off and Skimble's singing. And instead of just saying like, you need to work on this or being rude about it, he just, in the best Old Deuteronomy way, turned to me and he said, "My dear, welcome to Cats." I was like, "Thank you." And I wanted to call him by his real name, but I'm like, "Thank you, Old Deuteronomy. Like, I don't know who you are. You don't know who I am, but thank you, thank you." And then at the very end of the show, and I mean, I felt on top of the world because I was about to be done. I was about to be able to eat. Like, I didn't feel sick to my stomach anymore. I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're doing the final pounce." And the very end, like, you've already bowed, but the final pounce. And I crash right into Rum Tum Tugger. And clearly I was supposed to be on the 6, not the 7. You know what I mean? Like, we're supposed to be next to each other, but we absolutely collided. And instead of just letting it go, he just really, again, like, slowly, without moving his lips at all, said, "You're in my spot." And then the lights went out and I was like, "Oh."
Wow.
It's like the classic thing with being a swing. You do the best that you can. You allowed the show not to be canceled that night.
Yeah.
Because you went in and did this really hard thing that most people don't even dream about, that kind of adrenaline. And I did the best that I could. And I was like, I'll take both of those stories with me. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know what? The audience didn't notice those two things.
Of course not.
So they
No
don't.
way, Jose.
I have heard that
No,
the
they're not
train
looking at me.
is heavy because that's always surprising.
Super heavy.
So I've heard that before.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. I want to go
It was
back
just
though
me.
to one thing that you said earlier, because you mentioned that, like, you know, you have your swing moments. You had that where you kind of work
Yep.
backwards. But
Yes.
do you remember any of the kind of ahas you had when you did the whole rehearsal process? Like, what were the things you didn't know that when you found
my
out, you're like,
gosh.
"Oh wow, I didn't recognize that."
Yes, absolutely. So Richard Stafford was the person setting the show, and he has such a deep connection with the material and knew what every section meant. And first of all, I never did any of the felinity exercises my first time around. So I was literally just Laura in a cat suit trying my best. And I was looking around and I saw what other people were doing and I was mimicking it. And I was like, I think I look like a cat enough. And the second time around, having gone through a whole rehearsal period where I was learning how to specifically articulate fingers or not in certain sections, we've
Yeah.
decided that we use our fingers, we use our blades, we do these things, we don't have thumbs showing. I was like, oh dear, I had no idea. But I think the bigger aha moments were about the sections of the show. Like when I mentioned ritual was like the part that we did. Why is ritual different than the naming of the cats section? Naming of cats is this, but why does this follow this? And that was so beautiful to me to be like, whoa, I at that point had probably only done the show dozens of times, not hundreds, because I was a swing mostly off stage, you know?
Yeah.
But I was like, whoa, I didn't realize that this is what this was. I kind of thought certain sections were up to audience interpretation. You know what I mean? Of course, because I made that up. And I didn't realize that, like, when Grisabella comes for the first time, this means this. When she comes back the second time, it means that, like, what is her backstory? I didn't know. I was so focused on just the one cat that I was playing that I didn't have the understanding of what everybody around me was doing. And I felt like my performance got so much more nuanced the second year. And also the ritual of doing that show night after night, as opposed to only once every couple weeks. Whoa, it becomes part of you. You become part of a rich tradition, and your body hurts and you do get bored. All those things that you think will happen, like it does, but there's something so beautiful about sticking with a ritual that is hard. And I'm Catholic, and I think about the routine, the ritual that we follow every week. And it's important to have rituals in our lives, whether they're in church, whether they're on the stage. In my mind, there's so much overlap between those two things. I think there's a lot of spirituality when it comes to theater, and cats in particular. My gosh, it's a story about many things, don't get me wrong, but one of them is about transcendence. It's about some cat being chosen to go to the next place. Like, how can you not have some sort of a spiritual connection in that? So yeah, there was a tremendous difference in learning what the different sections were.
For sure. Can you talk about the boredom a little bit? Because I've always, like, again, as someone who has a very different job, like could not be more different, doing that same thing 8 times a week, or sometimes 9 or 10 times a week. How do you like manage that? Like, is there a part of the process to where you do like quirky little things with the cast to like do that? Like, what is the process to do that? Because after a year, and at your point, over a year of doing the exact same thing every night, sometimes twice a day, it has to feel a little repetitive to some point.
100% it does. And for me, I tend to be a big picture thinker. And so sometimes I would fall into this trap of being like, oh, the show is boring because I had a few moments of feeling bored. No. It was always the same moments of the show that would kick in. And so for me, I had to tell myself, like, you're about to get to the boring part. You know what I mean?
Okay, wait. What are your boring parts? For me,
it was, and no offense, because we had some unbelievable singers, but you're supposed to be, well, my track, I was literally laying down with my head on the ground when Grisabella is singing Memory. It's the most like poignant moment of the show, but man, was I bored, because your heart rate's been going like crazy, and then all of a sudden they ask you to lay down and not fall asleep.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, and it's a long song. It's a
Okay, great. This is good. This is hopefully good for my final question here. If you're saying how bored you are during Memory.
Yes. I have no shame in admitting that. Like, the song has a couple verses. You think it's over, then you're like, no, she's on the second verse. Okay, here we go. And then you have to turn around and look really interested in what she has to say. And you're just like, no.
I guess that's so true.
But again, like we had killer singers. So like when the boredom sets in, you just listen to what they're doing, or you know that she's sick tonight. And you're like, woo, she just flipped into her head voice. She's so smart. Yes. And you're rooting for her because she's like, she doesn't know if she has the note tonight. And then she has the note and you're just like, yes. Like you can kind of separate yourself from the cat costume that you're wearing and just be like, or if it's the first time that a swing has gone on for Grisabella and this is her dream, like, oh, no way does boredom set in there. Something else. And I know other cats have literally fallen asleep on stage during that part. So I know I'm not alone.
I love it.
But, it's hard when the adrenaline is there and then all the air gets sucked out of the show because it's just like, well, we stop and we do something else. But at that point, you also know that the show is so close to being done. And for me, vocally, because I love to sing, vocally, the next thing that happens was my favorite in the whole show. So I'm just like, you're about to do that thing you love, Laura. Like, don't let it show on your face. You're about to do it. And it was the up, 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 past the Jellylorum. Like the little, really quiet. And for Jellylorum, the notes are very, very high. But the really delicate when you're all standing in a row and you get to finally welcome Grisabella into the tribe. It's just like, it's the most beautiful thing, but man, it comes after the boring thing.
Yeah, I love that. It is so true. Like I never really thought about that. You were dancing nonstop, and then all of a sudden it's like, yep, just lay there while she sings.
Yes. And don't let your muscles seize up.
Yeah.
And, like lay in a position that you can cough if you need to. Lay in a position where you can grab that cough drop if you need to. You have to be really strategic because you can't move once you've decided on a position. And if you're on your elbow and it falls asleep, that's just life. You're just, you can't move. You gotta commit.
We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died. Wow. I want to hear a little bit about the regional production. So after tour, tell me how that comes to life and what that experience is like.
So this is probably less than a year after the second year of the tour. So it was, maybe within 6 months even. I saw, a post for a regional production of Cats. And I was like, after the tour, I thought to myself, like, once you've done it at this level, you don't want to do it anywhere else. And my body hurt, to be honest. My knees were talking to me. And I was like, I think that's it. You're still in your 20s and you're just like, I guess my cat's knees are gone. No, you stop the tour a week later, you're running again, all the pain goes away and you're like, gosh, I do miss it a little bit. And ooh, wouldn't it be fun to do a 2-month run of it and not a 2-year run? Yeah, I think I do want to. And so I went to the audition and obviously have Cats written all over my resume and everything. And there was one other person who was on the tour with me, and we ended up going to the audition together, and we kind of both had that same thought of like, almost like we were auditioning them more than they were auditioning us this time, because we're like, we know this show, it's on our resume, we don't need to do it again, but we love this show. Yeah, let's do it. Like, and it was almost like, is the director's heart in the right place? Do they have an appreciation for the show? I never want to do a production of Cats where the director doesn't love it and doesn't take it seriously. It is so easy to make fun of Cats. It's the easiest joke in the book. Like, oh man, I could do it with you for 1 hour right now. But I don't want someone at the helm to have any sort of a jaded perspective on it. I want them to be like, this is amazing, and let me tell you what this means and what this means, and let's do it. And that was the case there. And I had the opportunity to do the show with so many people who had never done it before that I found myself sharing that little bit of wisdom and kind of keeping the tradition alive of like, oh, this actually means this. These two cats were, this is, I found myself like being this sage when I knew nothing 2 years prior to that. It's like, you know more than you think you do after doing something hundreds of times on stage. So it was very special to have the chance to do it again with just a little bit more confidence. And again, you can't go into an opportunity like that and think that you know more than everybody else, because no, this is a different director, so it's a different vision, and your job is to convey the vision of that person that you're just meeting. So you can't take everything with you from the first version, but it was really special to do it again. And in this particular production, they were a little bit more lenient with the tracking, which has been so set since the 80s. The tour, like they're just like, you're Jellylorum, so that means you're not a very good dancer. So that means you're going to do this on the tire. You only have to do your arms. You're like, oh, I do know how to do that. You don't want me to? No, we're good. But in this particular production, they were just like, we need our strongest dancers here. She's going to go on the tire. So I ended up dancing the whole ball in this production. And that's when I realized, like, holy cow, all my friends have been doing this for years. This is what it feels like to not have the break in the middle of the ball and like go backstage and get a sip of water. There was no water sip in this production. So I really felt like when the end of the ball hits and the music just gets really slow and goes into ba da 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 da, you feel the sweat dripping down your brow, and like you feel the energy of the other people keeping you going when you're like, oh, it's a 2-show day. I don't have it. I can't finish this. You feel it from other people. And I was like, this is what I was missing, being in the back, being on the tire. Yeah. I missed the heart rate like this while the music is going slow. And you're just like, catch the breath, catch the breath, catch the breath, catch the breath right now. And as a little anecdote, I am doing a show right now in Colorado, and we're performing at 10,000 feet. And it is incredibly difficult to catch your breath at 10,000 feet. And I'm using those skills that I learned in Cats. I'm learning how to breathe when the audience is not watching you, how to be in an intense situation and not let your face show it, let your body tension be there, but not the breath. Yeah. Let the breath just be Laura, just be me on a beautiful sunny day, because you can't physically do some of the things you need to do at 10,000 feet. And we never did Cats at 10,000 feet. I don't think it's allowed. I would think there are laws against it. We did perform in some high elevation places. Denver's pretty high. Alta, New Mexico is pretty high. And it's a swing. I knew I would be in all those performances because a lot of dancers they would think they were okay. They would take some oxygen before, and then they would not feel well, so you ended up getting swung in mid-show or at the 10 minutes before the show. It's like, oh, she's not okay. You're in. And so you know that you're going to be asked to do this thing that you don't do every night at the high altitudes. So like, all right, give me a hit of the oxygen, put me out there. I'll do my best. Give my best B+ performance.
They warn you, but there's no way to prep you for that. I grew up playing hockey, and I played in the mountains in Colorado once or twice. And
oh my gosh,
every time you get out there, it's like, I'll be okay. Like I'm in pretty good shape. And it's just like the first period, you're like, nope, I'm not good. This is very different.
Like, this might be my last day on earth. Yeah. It's like really easy to get very dramatic. Yeah. You're like, I'll never play hockey again. That's it. Like,
and I was already playing with very, very good, talented people from there. That was like not the skill level. I was like, wow, they're already good and they're used to this, and I'm not. But
it is
very
humbling.
much
That's
so.
that is the word for being a swing in general, and being asked to go in at a moment's notice. And for us, our rule was 8 minutes. So if somebody had some sort of an injury or sickness, if something happened to them mid-show as a swing, we were told you need to be on that stage in 8 minutes.
Wow.
And we tested that many times, and it was always enough time. You know what I mean? I can think of 0 examples where we weren't ready in 8 minutes, because that was the rule.
That's like doing your makeup and everything and being
100%. Yeah. And when we were singing in the vocal booth, we would be wearing sweatshirts and jeans. We were just wearing whatever we were wearing. We were often eating back there. We were doing other, you know what I mean? And then you get the call on the headset from the stage manager or the ASM, like, Laura Cable to the stage, please, or Laura Cable to the dressing room. And you don't necessarily know what cat you're in for. You've just looked on the little black and white TV and you're like,
who doesn't look well?
So I think I know who does. I think I know, but you don't know what cat you're getting into. You just hear it. And honestly, I was so incredibly blessed to be with a group of swings that I was with, because they were total pros. And they'd all been together for, at least 6 months before I joined the tour. And they had seen it all. Any terrible thing had already happened to them. And so when they would get that call, it was just excitement. There was no like, oh, no, I'm not ready. We were so incredibly ready. You know what I mean? And then you're sitting next to Felix in the booth, and 8 minutes later, you see him on your little black and white TV, and you're just like, yes. He's out there. He was just next to me eating a hamburger. This is amazing. So cool. Yeah.
Well, I love it. Well, let's do some rapid fire here. I always love to ask the same couple questions. So one would be, if you could go on for any cat, whether you could physically do it, male, female, it doesn't matter. Just if you can go on for one night, who do you want to go on as?
Oh, I want to be Mr. Mistopheles. If I have the skills, yeah, absolutely. Put me in, like, I want to absolutely wow people with my fouette turns. I want to be him.
Okay. Who are your favorite and least favorite cats, personality-wise?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I've got to go with Jellylorum, because she's just sweet and all those things. I love Mungo Rump. I love Mungo Jerry and Ruffle Teaser, because they just have so much personality, and and I like their partnership together, that they don't try to do anything alone, that they always have their buddy there. So yes, I'm big fan of them. And as a swing, that was always our break. That was our pee break, is that we'd had 2 pee breaks in the whole show. It was during Mungo Rump, because we only had to sing the last 4 bars. We just had to sing, and there's nothing at all to be done about that. So you could pee in that amount of time. And the other one, we called it the Macava pee, because it was during Macavity. And we did not have to sing for the first, I think it was 1.5 minutes of that song. And then we would come in. So we were like, okay, this is our chance. Anyway, like Mungo Rump, they're 2 of my favorites. I never really warmed up to, as sad as it is to admit this, to Victoria, to the white cat, who everybody loves. Yeah, it's a hot take, right? Because she doesn't have a song. She doesn't have like that moment she's just sort of there, and everybody loves the white cat so much that whenever we would go out the stage door, like, people don't know who you are, which is so awesome, honestly, for the ego of an actor. They just tell you amazing job, because the show as a whole was amazing. But at least when I was on the tour for the 2 years that I was out there, everyone would say, amazing job. Were you the white cat?
Yeah.
I was just like, no. And then after a while, because the white cat was one that would really take her time to come out, I would always pass it along to her and be like, oh, all these little girls really love the white cat. She's like, Laura, why are you saying you're not the white cat? Just be the white cat.
Yeah.
Pass it along. Just say yes.
Just say yes. Yeah.
Just say yes. So anyway, yeah, I've always been like, oh, that white cat, she gets all the glory, doesn't even have to sing a song, and then everybody just wants her autograph at the end. So yeah, we were all the white cat.
I love it.
At some point.
I love it. Favorite song from the show?
It's Skimble Shanks. It really is.
Yeah,
it is so
with the heavy tire.
Different. With a heavy tire, it is so different from everything else in that show, and it starts with Jingle Bells. It's like impossible not to smile.
Yeah,
you're sitting there, you're kind of sad, and then you just hear jingle, 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 and you know that you just get to sing this ridiculous song about a railway cat. Oh, hands down, it's my favorite.
It is. I agree. It's great. It's it's so upbeat and fun, and yeah, I love it.
Yes. It's in a weird time signature too. So it's like, it feels cool. It feels very 80s. I love it.
So I always like to ask one fun one. So which cat do you think would be best in high altitude with you out there in Denver?
Oh, it's straight up Buster Jones. He doesn't have to do anything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just from performance wise.
yeah. Like, well, actually, he would struggle because that costume is heavy. But at a high altitude, yeah, you want to be a cat. You want to go with Old Deuteronomy, probably, like somebody who moves with great intention, but not quickly, because you can do anything slowly here at this altitude. You can't do anything fast.
It's
So yeah,
Gus, right? Gus, Old Deuteronomy, Bustifer. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's those guys. That whole that whole crew. They would be fine. They would never call out at the high altitude. They're like, "What? Are we in the mountains? I don't know. Just sit here and
exactly.
sing." Yeah.
Okay. Most important question. I have argued at length that I don't think Grisabella is the right Jellicle choice, especially during that boring number where you're trying to stay awake.
Thank you. It is a boring number.
So I want to hear from you. Who is your Jellicle choice and why?
Okay. It has got to be Gus. And this is not just because I spent so much of my career as Jellylorum. Like, straight up, the way that the musical is written, all of a sudden things slow down. We've gone to intermission, we've come back, and now there is this old cat who is so old he can't even sing for himself. He has somebody else, a caretaker, literally telling you how wonderful this guy is and how his career isn't what it used to be, and he's on his last cat legs. And then we forget about him. They're just like, sorry, Gus, not your year. Like, how many more years is Gus gonna live? If it's not this year, this guy is old. Like, if you're sitting in the balcony, you don't know. But if you're up close and you see the way his face is painted, you're like, this cat might not make it to intermission. Mm-hmm. How in the world is it not Gus? But it's not. They're like, sorry, Gus. I think it's so rude. Don't give this man his own song. Don't give him a whole pirate number and an opera chance to go back without letting him be the winner. It's insanely rude. Yeah, I'll always be on Team Gus.
I agree. I always love having. I need to get more Jellylorums on the show because without fail, you spend so much time basically like telling why Gus should be picked to not have it happen every night.
Jellylorum uses her song to talk about someone else.
Yeah.
Like, we know it's not going to be Jellylorum because she never talks about herself. She's just like, listen, I'm like a solid B-lister here. I don't have anything extraordinary about me. But this guy, like, I'm using my vote. I'm not voting for myself. I'm voting for Gus.
Yeah.
And then everyone listens, and then the music just kind of shifts, and we go into Skimble Shanks, the railway cat. And I was like, what? You can't compare these guys. What do you mean?
It is such a stark difference, those two songs.
So weird. And they come back to back, and the audience needs it. I understand why they're structured that way. The audience needs to have that poignant moment, and then they need to laugh a little bit. But it's like, if you think Skimbleshanks is going to get picked over Gus, who's lived this whole life and is now not quite there anymore, got another thing coming. Yeah, it's definitely Gus.
I'm not gonna try to argue with you because I agree. I will take any non Grisabella vote. So this has been super fun. I loved hearing your experience and some of the stories and the crazy swing stories and everything that comes with it. How can people stay in touch with you on social media and what you're working on?
Yeah, so I'm on social media in two different ways. The first way is at Dr_Cable, DOCTOR _Cable, CABLE. And that nickname actually came from the Cat Tour. So it might be worth mentioning that. Actually, I will share this story, even though we are wrapping up, because I think it's fun. We spent so much time in that vocal booth. And as I mentioned, the rest of the company, the playing company, as we mentioned, the people who were on stage all the time, they didn't have the opportunity to check their phones during Act 1. They didn't have the opportunity to get a sip of water, none of that stuff. But we did. We were connected to Wi-Fi. We had the opportunity to do things. And over time, people would start to ask me, hey, can you look this up for me real quick? I have a little bit of a sore throat and a mild fever. Is that the flu? And I would be like, I'll let you know at intermission. Yeah, no problem. I'd go on WebMD and I'm like, yeah, what's your temperature? You should, yeah, that's probably the flu. You probably are contagious. And then it turned into random questions that people would ask about geography, or they would ask questions about what is the altitude going to be in Alto, New Mexico. And after a while, they would just say, thank you, doctor. And it became like a real nickname. We also discovered, and this is insane to me, that there was a huge uptake in the percentage of times that we as swings were going on stage when there was an actual full moon in real life.
Wow.
And we would joke about it because there were 9 of us, like in the vocal booth. And when the full moon would happen, we would sometimes all be on stage, which is wild. But always 2, 3, 4 of us would be when there was a full moon, and that was not happening when there was a new moon. So anyway, we had time on our hands, and I went to the stage manager and I said, "Do you keep track of when we swing in?" And she said, "Yeah, I got all that data." And I said, "Cool. I'd like to compare that with this chart of the full moon." And by the time I started doing that, people were like, "Oh, Dr. Cable has gone off the deep end. Like, we got to get her back on stage. She has too much time on my hands." And I was like, "No, seriously though, there's this." I don't remember what the percentage was, but it was a huge increase when the actual moon was full. And I know that that's because people are crazy during the full moon. Weird things happen. But our show is sort of about the Jellicle moon. And anyway, so that really solidified the Dr. Cable name. Anyway, that's how you can find me on social
Google
media.
For your tour.
I was, yeah. Because there are no pockets in those costumes. Let me tell you, you can't keep your smartphone there to look up your symptoms. I was Google. And the other way that you can keep in touch with me is I have a second Instagram account that is Laura Cable Speaks, because I'm a motivational speaker that speaks about resilience in the performing arts. So if anybody out there is looking for just motivational, very short motivational videos about how you keep going in this industry when the numbers are stacked against you and you're not feeling a lot of hope, that Instagram account is for you.
Awesome. We will link both of them, and hopefully people don't start sending you symptoms.
I'm ready. Dr. Cable's in the house, so I'm happy to answer any of your questions about your flu-like symptoms.
I'm ready to go. Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you for coming and sharing your stories.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any else listen podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website.